Hey, how's it going everybody? Welcome back to Aussie Fish Keeping. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about how you can pick out the perfect fish for your aquarium. So picking out the perfect fish for your aquarium can be a pretty long and tedious process, particularly if you don't really know what you're doing. I know when I first started fish keeping, I really didn't know what sort of fish to keep, and it did take quite a bit of trial and error before I really figured out what sort of fish I wanted to specialize in. So yeah, this video is going to be perfect for anybody who's just set up a tank. Maybe they've got a few fish in there and they're wondering what else they can put in their tank. It's also going to be a great video for anybody who has an idea of a tank that they want in their head, but they're not sure what sort of fish they want to get. So yeah, in today's video, we're going to be going over all of the factors you should be going over before you actually choose a fish for your aquarium. So yeah, with that being said, let's just jump straight into today's video. So as for the first thing you're going to want to consider before you actually pick out a fish for your aquarium, this one is pretty obvious, and that's your tank size. So tank size is very important when it comes to picking an aquarium fish. You want to make sure you've got plenty of room for your fish to grow. You also want to make sure that your tank is big enough so that you're not overstocking it. And yeah, it really is just a crucial part of keeping fish. So in my opinion, there's sort of three sizes of tanks that you can really get. Number one, you could get a nano aquarium. So obviously a nano aquarium is just a super small aquarium. It's got a limited number of species you can put in it, just because not many species can live in very small spaces, but there is definitely some out there that you could use. Then you've just got your regular size aquarium, so that's anywhere from about 20 to 30 liters all the way up to about 3 foot, I'd say would be just a regular size. And in that you could keep a bunch of different tropical fish. You could keep African fish, you could keep South American fish, Australian fish, all sorts of different types of aquarium fish. And then you've also got like monster tanks that you could keep, you know, red-tailed catfish, massive clown knifefish, peacock bass, all these huge fish, which if you are a beginner, I probably wouldn't recommend. I haven't really dipped my toes into the predatory fish yet. So yeah, for a beginner, I'd probably recommend something like a nano tank, or even just a little bit bigger, maybe up to a 2-foot tank. And in that sort of size range, you could keep a whole bunch of aquarium fish. So the most notable ones would be pretty much any sort of tetra, rasboras, barbs, corydoras catfish, bristlenose, dwarf cichlids, cherry shrimp, live bearers. There really is, I guess, a never-ending amount of aquarium fish you could keep in that sort of size range. So like I mentioned before, the tank size is probably one of the most crucial parts, just because if you don't have a big enough aquarium for your aquarium fish, it can stress them out. They can run into the sides of the glass a lot. They can also sort of outgrow the tank. So it's an absolute huge myth that aquarium fish grow to the size of their tank. I mean, it's sort of truthful in some aspects. If you have a larger growing fish in a smaller size tank, they will stay small, but that is just because they're being stunted, so they will not live like very long at all. They'll just sort of die. Just because they aren't able to grow properly, their organs aren't able to grow properly, their skeleton's not able to grow properly, so they just sort of stay like a really mutant little fish. This tends to happen a lot if you are breeding fish and you've got, you know, hundreds and hundreds of babies in a small tank. You can sometimes run into stunted growth. So yeah, it is definitely so important that you're making sure your tank is big enough for your fish. Another reason you want to make sure you have a big enough tank for your aquarium fish is because if you do have a larger sized aquarium fish in a smaller tank, usually larger sized fish produce a lot more waste. So in a smaller water body, that waste can be turned into ammonia a lot quicker, just because there's a lot more waste. And that can lead to all sorts of problems. It can literally just kill your fish straight up. So yeah, with that being said, making sure you're considering tank size is definitely important when it comes to picking out your perfect aquarium fish. As for the next factor you're going to want to consider, this one's sort of only really applicable if you are keeping multiple different species, and that's going to be compatibility. So like I said, this one's only really if you are going to be keeping a community aquarium where it's going to have multiple different species of aquarium fish. So compatibility in a sort of situation like that is definitely important. You want to make sure that all the fish can get along in your new aquarium and they're not having any sort of conflict, they're not fighting, they're not killing each other. So usually what I like to do is I'll try and keep all my South American fish together, I'll keep all African fish together, all Australian fish together. That way you should have less sort of conflict In saying that, you can definitely get away with, say, mixing, I don't know, rainbow fish and barbs. They should go fine together. There's a lot of instances like that where different species of fish from different areas can go together. But yeah, I do find fish from certain areas do go better together just because in the wild, that's the sort of fish they're around a lot of the time. So there's a few reasons you want to consider compatibility. Obviously, the main one is you don't want your fish fighting. So if you keep two very aggressive territorial fish together, obviously they are going to fight. That can lead to your fish dying. It can lead to diseases in your tank just because your fish are becoming weaker from fighting all the time. And yeah, it can just lead to not a great little aquarium. Another sort of compatibility you're going to want to keep in mind is making sure that your aquarium fish can eat the same diet. So you can definitely get away with keeping aquarium fish in the same aquarium that need different diets. A good example of this is, say, bristlenose with any other sort of aquarium fish. So most of your tropical aquarium fish will eat, your tropical flakes, tropical pellets, frozen foods, live foods, whereas the bristlenose do need their own specialized diets. They need things like green vegetables, they need algae wafers, and they do need a little bit of protein like sinking wafers or even frozen food every now and then as well. As well as that, you might have, say, a bigger aquarium fish and a smaller aquarium fish, and your smaller aquarium fish may need a very small diet, whereas the bigger fish may need a little bit of a bigger diet. So yeah, making sure all your fish are compatible with the same sort of food is definitely important. It does make keeping fish a lot more simple, but like I said, if you do want to, you can get away with feeding your fish different diets. You just want to make sure that all your fish are getting their own diet. And then the final sort of compatibility is you want to make sure all your aquarium fish are compatible with the same water parameters. So you're not going to want to keep, say, a cold water fish in a tropical aquarium or a tropical fish in a cold water aquarium. And I mean, that's pretty obvious just because the tropical fish do prefer tropical heated water, whereas cold water fish prefer more cold water. And this is another reason I like to keep fish from particular areas in the same community aquarium, just because obviously if they're from the same area, they're going to be in the same water, so it's going to be more likely that they're compatible with the same water parameters. Whereas if you go mixing, say, African cichlids with American cichlids, they're obviously not going to be used to the same water parameters. So yeah, with that being said, you want to make sure that your aquarium fish are going to be compatible on all levels, making sure they eat the same diet, need the same water parameters, and they're not going to kill each other. So yeah, compatibility is definitely another very important thing you want to keep in mind when picking the perfect fish. Moving on to the next very important factor, it's going to be care level. So this is up to you. I mean, if you want to have a very hard sort of expert level fish, I guess you can go ahead and get that. Although that's going to need more of your time, so you may need to feed it more often, you may need to feed it a more specialized diet, you may need to do water changes more often, it may need to be kept in super sort of hard to achieve water parameters. So yeah, if you want to do that, then by all means go ahead and get a fish like that. But if you don't have enough time, say you have to work a lot of the time and you don't really have too much time to be doing that sort of stuff, then you want to get a more low level or easy sort of aquarium fish, so things like guppies, endlers, that you can sort of just throw in your aquarium, do a water change maybe once every 3-4 weeks, and they just live happily. So I mean, this tip is pretty brief, but like I said, it really is up to you whether you want to put that much time into keeping your fish or you just want to sort of have a little aquarium in your house that you can sort of just appreciate. But yeah, with that being said, making sure you're choosing fish that have a care level that suits you is definitely very important when it comes to picking your aquarium fish. Moving on to the final thing, which I think a lot of people don't even think about before they actually get a fish, it's going to be breeding behavior. So some fish like live bearers and guppies are great little beginner fish. They're so easy to care for. They can go in pretty much any water parameters. They're very peaceful, can go with pretty much any aquarium fish as well. But one sort of downside, I guess you could say, is that they just breed by themselves in their aquarium and they'll breed by the hundreds. So if you want to start breeding, then by all means get guppies. They're definitely one of the greatest little beginner breeding fish. But like I said, if you just want a little aquarium in your house that doesn't require too much effort, then I'd probably try and get not a live bearer. Just because when they do breed, that's going to make your aquarium more overstocked. You're going to have to get rid of some. Particularly because assorted guppies and more of the inexpensive strains of guppies are very abundant in the aquarium trade. So they can be a little bit more difficult to get rid of. Another reason you're going to want to make sure you understand their breeding behavior is because if you have a group of fish and you've got a few females and a few males, and the males around breeding time tend to get very aggressive with each other, and you aren't really prepared to separate them, you don't have another tank if you need to separate them, say one's getting super beat up, then again, you'll just have absolute carnage in your aquarium. Everything will be getting attacked, your fish will be dying. And yeah, it's just something you can easily avoid if you do a little bit of research before picking out your aquarium fish, and making sure you're understanding how they breed, if they're live bearers, egg scatterers, parental egg layers, everything like that. Making sure you understand breeding behavior is definitely very important when it comes to selecting your perfect aquarium fish. So that is actually going to bring us to the end of today's video. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope this video helps a few of you guys out. If you did enjoy today's video, make sure to go down and subscribe, and while you're down there, smash the like button and comment your thoughts on today's video. I always love going down there and reading them all, and I try to reply back to as many comments as I can. Also, if you haven't done so already, make sure to go check out my website, aussiefishkeeping.com. I've got a Boxing Day sale running at the moment. We've got a bunch of beginner fish up there. Got some rare strains of guppies going for only 40 bucks a pair. I've got some Denios, some bristlenose. So yeah, if you're after any live aquarium fish, botanicals, or other aquarium products, make sure to go check out my website while the Boxing Day sale is still running. But yeah, with that being said, I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you all so much for sticking around to the end, and I'll see you all in that next video.